You think you know the samurai, the noble warrior, the katana, the code of honor, one unified way of the warrior. But that version of history is a lie of convenience, because in reality, there wasn't one samurai culture. There were multiple competing samurai empires, each with its own tactics, technology, and idea of what a warrior even was. Today, you'll meet three completely different samurai empires that fought so differently they would barely recognize each other on the battlefield. And they never showed you any of them in school. Forget the image of a lone samurai calmly drawing his sword. Our first empire turned the samurai into high-speed shock cavalry. Welcome to the Takeda of Kai province. In the 1500s, under Takeda's Shingen, this clan carved out an empire in the mountains between Kyoto and the future Tokyo. On a map, it just looks like rugged terrain. But in military terms, it's the throat of Japan. Whoever controlled these passes controlled the movement of armies, taxes, and trade between east and west. Most samurai armies of the time fought on foot, heavily armored, slow, ritualized. The Takeda did the opposite. They built a professional war machine of mounted samurai, trained to charge, wheel, and fire in coordinated waves. Contemporary sources describe their cavalry assaults as a red storm breaking over enemy lines. Their banner read, "Swift as the wind, quiet as the forest, fierce as fire, steady as the mountain." But here's the part your schoolbook skipped. This wasn't just honor and swords. The Takeda were early adopters of gunpowder and volley fire, integrating arquebuses, archers, and cavalry into a combined arms doctrine. Their fortress network, like the stronghold at Kofu, wasn't built to look pretty. It was a logistical engine that kept 30,000 soldiers supplied in brutal mountain terrain. Even Tokugawa Ieyasu, the man who would one day unify Japan, studied Takeda tactics and copied them. These samurai weren't just warriors, they were strategic engineers of geography, weaponizing mountains and movement in a way that made older battlefield traditions obsolete. While the Takeda turned mountains into weapons, another samurai empire turned an entire region into a fortress. Meet the later Hōjō of Odawara. Their power base? The Kanto region, the flatlands around what would one day become Tokyo. Open terrain is a nightmare to defend, unless you rewrite the rules. The Hōjō didn't just build a castle, they built a defensive ecosystem. Odawara Castle wasn't a single keep, it was a fortress city. Outer walls snaked through hills and valleys, dozens of kilometers of earthworks, moats, and watchtowers forming layered rings of defense. Entire villages were folded into this system, so the population itself became part of the defensive plan. But the real twist is who ruled this empire. Most people imagine samurai as lone swordsmen. The Hōjō created a samurai-bureaucrat hybrid, warriors who also served as tax officials, magistrates, and regional governors. These men weren't just fighting battles, they were running a state of over 2 million subjects. In 1590, when Toyotomi Hideyoshi marched on Odawara with a coalition army said to be over 200,000 strong, the samurai world expected a short, decisive siege. Instead, the Hōjō dug in and made him wait. Layers of fortifications, supply routes, and fallback positions turned the siege into a psychological war. Hideyoshi's men reportedly spent weeks in a bizarre mix of boredom, stalemates, and small skirmishes, while the Hōjō just endured. Only when Hideyoshi combined overwhelming numbers, naval blockades, and political isolation did the Hōjō finally fall. These samurai didn't win by charging bravely at the enemy. They nearly won by making it logistically impossible to defeat them. An empire of walls, paperwork, and patience, completely different from the romantic image of the roaming swordsman. Our third empire fought in a place most samurai never trained for, the sea. Enter the Mōri clan of Western Honshu, the warlords of the inland sea. Look at a map of Japan's inland sea. a maze of islands, narrow straits, and hidden coves. To most armies, it was just blue space between provinces. To the Mōri, it was a highway and a weapon. Under leaders like Mōri Motonari, they created a naval power that controlled the flow of rice, trade goods, and troops between East and West Japan. Their ships weren't just transports. They fielded specialized warships, manned by crews who were samurai and sailors at the same time. Armored warriors who could fight on rolling decks, in boarding actions, and in sudden night raids. To rivals on land, battles were about banners and formations. To the Mōri, battles were about supply lines. Why face a full enemy army on land when you could cut off their rice ships, starve their cities, and let hunger do the killing? They also formed alliances, and sometimes rivalries, with local maritime clans often labeled as pirates, families who knew every current and hidden anchorage in the inland sea. Together they turned this maze of water into a samurai pirate empire, able to isolate entire regions without ever setting foot on a battlefield. When land-based lords tried to invade their territory, they discovered something simple and brutal. If your ships don't survive the crossing, your glorious army never even arrives. These weren't the quiet, meditative warriors of modern movies. These were logistical predators, fighting with maps, tides, and trade routes. So the next time you hear the way of the samurai, remember, there wasn't one way. There were mountain empires like the Takeda, weaponizing terrain and cavalry. There were fortress empires like the Hōjō, ruling through walls and bureaucracy. And there were sea empires like the Mōri, turning trade routes into battlegrounds. Same class, same title, completely different worlds of war. Which of these three samurai empires would you have wanted to fight for? Mountain, fortress, or sea? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more warrior cultures they erased from your history books, watch my breakdown of the three completely different Viking empires next. This is Infinite Paths, real warriors, lost civilizations, hidden truths.